So we're going to get into the basketball scene now, professional. Just talking about this trade deadline that happened, just a multitude of trades. Even before we got to talk about it on last week's show, myself, Jake Novicki, and Bobby Jerome, we got to talk about the Kyrie Irving trade. And, I mean, that was big in itself. Kyrie Irving goes to Dallas. Luka Doncic gets that dynamic duo in the backcourt for the Mavericks. But then what happens, I forget the exact day, but like I remember I was still up late that night, and I get the tweet. You know, you get the Woj bomb, the Shams bomb, whatever they're both called now at this point. But I forget who tweeted it first, but it said Kevin Durant is about to go to the Suns, and I'm like, here we go. I wasn't really expecting it myself, but ends up being a 4-team trade. The Phoenix Suns get Kevin Durant and T.J. Warren. The Brooklyn Nets get an absolute haul in this deal. Mikal Bridges, I mean, he's been up there for a potential Defensive Player of the Year. Cameron Johnson is a rising star, a scoring wing who was in Phoenix. Juan Pablo Valle, and 4 first-round picks from the Phoenix Suns. Also, a 2028 first-round pick swap from the Suns. So that just means whatever pick is the higher pick, that one in that year will go to Brooklyn. The lower one goes to Phoenix. And then 2 second-round picks, 2028 and 2029. The Milwaukee Bucks get Jay Crowder. And in that trade, the Bucks traded away 5 second-round draft picks. Very, very large trade there. And the Indiana Pacers hopped in as well. They got George Hill, Serge Ibaka, Jordan Nwora, 3 future second-round picks. Those are from Milwaukee, and some cash considerations from Brooklyn. So that's just one trade that was just like, holy cow. It starts with Durant and the Nets, and then 2 more teams pile on.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy in the sense of, like, just the amount of teams and assets just getting moved around and everything. When I first saw it, I mean, like, I was asleep, and then I woke up at, like, 5 a.m., saw it. I'm like, oh, my gosh, like, this just really happened, you know? But I mean, like, when you look at the teams in it and involved, it just kind of seemed a little bit strange that, you know, like, the Bucks are in it, and they're kind of, like, funneling this big 3 going to be now in Phoenix. So I kind of got a little thrown off by that in a sense, because it was just like, oh, well, you're going to have to eventually potentially face that too. And I didn't understand why the Nets would be giving up so much when, I mean, you're in 5th place right now, and you could be competing for a playoff spot too. So it just seemed a little bit strange, but overall, I mean, Suns killed it with that trade. I mean, they get a 3rd piece to that lineup that's already nuts. So
yeah, the Suns came out of that trade absolutely rocking it, and I gotta wonder what the Nets are thinking here. You know, you traded away Kyrie Irving last week, and then you turn around and you trade KD. It certainly got me thinking that maybe there's something internally there that made them realize, oh, this big 3 that we put so much into to assemble didn't work out, and now we're selling the farm right at trade deadline while you're 5th in the division.
And I think that's just also kind of a thing, too, where you're like, you don't want to, like, admit failure, like, admit defeat in that sense. But I think just at that point, James Harden was already gone. He's been gone for a while. As soon as Kyrie's gone, you kind of think, are we going to have enough to have a chance with just Kevin Durant? And I know Durant, this late in his career, he doesn't want to be the guy doing all the heavy lifting. I mean, he's going to certainly do some. He's Kevin Durant. But got to get him in a situation, at least for his sake, and I think it was like mutually agreed upon that they were going to move him, and he wanted to go to Phoenix. And how about that? I think within the span of a day, the Suns, they get a new owner, and then they get Kevin Durant. Things are rolling in Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem very strange in the Nets' perspective. But yeah, I mean, Phoenix is on the rise, and it kind of happened like that. I mean, like, you know, they made the title run a couple years back, but I mean, it's just crazy that, like, I mean, there's a new big 3, and we haven't seen a true big 3 since, I mean, the Warriors at this point, when they had KD and they had Clay and Steph. So now you kind of get this new thing of, like, another team kind of doing it again, you know? But, I mean, Kevin Durant, just going to throw in a little side note, too, doing it again with the big 3, but, you know, it's okay. We won't get into that one, my takes on that stuff, but it's okay. You know?
There we go.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's plenty of opinions about NBA big 3s and the superstardom, and probably the attempted one in LA that didn't necessarily work out, and which led to Russell Westbrook getting traded as well.
Oh, yeah, that just ultimately did not last, and again, Russell Westbrook getting traded to Utah. And then now I think, he's going to get bought out, and then we'll see. At least that's what it seems like is going to happen, and then he'll find another place to go. I think the Clippers have some interest. At least Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I think, are trying to get him over there. But I mean, in terms of a big three, I almost think myself. Do you consider that Cavs run of that 4 straight finals? You got Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kevin Love. Do you consider that a big three as well? I mean, they did get one.
I mean, I think from a standpoint of like, was it firepower and kind of like the big names that you had? No, not at all. But I mean, you got to consider LeBron James is one of the best players of all time, if not the best. I'm not going to get into that argument, but it's kind of like, did he really need to have all these pieces like, a KD or like a Klay Thompson or anything like that? I mean, Kyrie was in his prime basically with the Cavaliers, but I mean, it was one of those things where it's just like, I feel like LeBron was more of just like, he was just dominant, because I mean, Love went out on when he got fouled, like what was it? Like
almost got his arm ripped off by Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah.
So it's like he kind of prevailed through all this adversity throughout his time in Cleveland the second time through. So I think I truthfully think it was a little bit more LeBron in that sense.
Yeah, that one definitely felt. Well, it's kind of hard to have a real LeBron big three. The closest thing you got was those years with the Heat down in Miami. That's probably the closest you came to a true big three. Just the immense talent that LeBron has and the presence he brings to the basketball court. You're not going to really find an equal like that unless you bring in Steph Curry. But like even then, you're not likely.
And you want to potentially talk about a segue here. I know, Dylan, you didn't want to get into is LeBron the greatest to play or not, but you got to at least give credit where credit's due in terms of greatness, because a week ago, LeBron James broke the regular season all-time scoring record in the NBA. He needed 36 against the Thunder. Now, if he wanted to do it in one fell swoop, he did that. Added 2 more points as well. Scored 38 points a week ago at home against the Thunder. Hit a fadeaway jumper from the left elbow to give himself the regular season scoring record, passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Held the record since 1984. 38,387. LeBron now at 38,390 points. Now, he has not played since. I think he's had some injury issues kind of lingering on. I mean, I know he's, for as well as he's doing at the age of 38, just in itself is just unbelievable. But I know Father Time, no matter what, always has a way of creeping up, catching up at some point. He's given it a heck of a fight, I'll tell you what. But LeBron now all-time leading scorer in the regular season, and he's been for a while in the postseason. So he's somebody I know for quite a long time. Potentially was thinking of a pass-first kind of player, but I mean, he's the all-time leading scorer now in both. I think that pass-first might have to change a little bit, but he is a heck of a passer.
I've had so many restless nights ever since he got that, thinking of, okay, MJ or LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a real question of, like you said, longevity versus just a sheer short time frame of just dominance from MJ. I've been a guy that has been an MJ supporter for the longest time, especially too. I mean, I'm from Akron, and you would think that I'd be on the LeBron James hype train, but it's still one of those things where it's just like it can go either way, in my opinion. But I mean, LeBron James, I grew up watching him all my life, and he is at least one of the best basketball players I have ever witnessed in my time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, I think that argument has to come down to, what do you value more? Do you value those statistics and that longevity and that sheer ability to still, at this age, be able to go out there and still have that strong presence on a basketball court on a nightly basis? Or do you value championship rings?
And yeah, and I agree. Like it's definitely gonna have to come down to that, and I think this is gonna be the fight till the death of every person at this point. But I think it's gonna be interesting to see kind of how much longer he'll play. I personally want to see him play with Bronny and his sons. That'd be awesome. But who knows at this point?
I'd say how cool would that be? I mean, you're going to get vibes of, Dylan, I know you're playing baseball right now, that Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Sr. kind of vibe. I thought that was very cool. And speaking of Bronny, just seeing some recent news in terms of him, according to Mark Stein, he will be playing for USA Basketball in Portland in April in the heavily scouted Nike Hoop Summit. So Bronny is among a group of 26 players selected for that, so he's certainly making a name for himself as well. Did see him on the floor watching his dad get the all-time regular season scoring record. So, again, just a huge achievement for LeBron James in that aspect. But how about one of LeBron's former teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers? They are on a hot stretch right now, a 7-game winning streak. They're fourth in the East with a 38-22 record so far this season, and they were able to collect wins over Detroit, New Orleans on the road, at home against Chicago, and then last night at home against San Antonio. And regarding that win at home against San Antonio, just some uncanny connection that I could not help but notice. I'm a Seinfeld fan myself. I don't know about you two. I know it's a bit of an older show. But the Cavs beat the Spurs last night 117-109. And it's oddly specific, but I've watched the show enough to know when and where this happens. There's an episode of the show that aired in 1991, and the main character, Jerry, has this Post-it note piece of paper. He wrote something on it when he was asleep, kind of just quickly woke up, jotted something down, but he couldn't read it. So he kept asking people, do you know what this says? I don't know what this says. He gives it to somebody, and he's like, oh, yeah, I know what it says. He's like, yeah, what? Then the guy says, Cleveland 117, San Antonio 109. And it's funny in itself, just a specific score, specific teams. In that time frame, you're like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen with that. In 2019, in San Antonio, an overtime game, the Cavaliers beat the Spurs 117-109. It happens again last night. That's happened twice. I mean, you talk about a crazy prediction. What are the odds of something like that?
At what point do you start thinking, I should place money on that? It's getting a little eerie now. I'll say that.
It's starting to turn into The Simpsons at this point, and everyone knows how The Simpsons predict everything, and it's just it's crazy that I don't think The Simpsons ever really predicted a score of a game twice in a row. But I mean, what are the odds of that kind of stuff happening?
Well, let's hope the future. Well, let's hope things from Futurama don't start coming true.
No kidding.
Whole another avenue right there. But in terms of the Cavs, though, right now they've again just been having some great performances. Jarrett Allen in particular, 4 straight double-doubles. He has just been a force for the Cavs inside. And Donovan Mitchell last night, 41 points, already his 6th 40-point game as a Cavalier. For perspective, Kyrie Irving in his entire time as a Cavalier, he had 11 in total. Donovan Mitchell's got 6 this season. That's already third most in Cavs franchise history. And I know we've been talking about the moves made at the trade deadline. Shortly after the deadline, the Cavs did make a move. I mean, not the most grandiose of moves, but I'm thinking it could help in some respect, probably later on in the season, potentially into a postseason run. They signed a shooting wing, Danny Green, a 1-year deal. He's 35 years old. He's in his 14th season, but it's a reunion. He is back to the team that drafted him with the 46th pick in the 2009 draft. He played in 20 games with the Cavs that season, shot 6 of 22 from 3. He's a 3-time NBA champion, won once each with the Spurs, Raptors, and Lakers. Averaged over 8 points for his career, shooting just about 40% from 3 in his career. You think, you're bringing a little bit more of a veteran presence. And I know Kevin Love has just been kind of phased out of the Cavs rotation recently. But you're getting some presence in that wing, that sharpshooting department, which I think the team needs.
I think one of the things is, 2 of the things that I really think that the Cavs needed were more veteran talent. They did get that with Donovan Mitchell coming in this year. Not too much, but a little bit more than what they have. They're a very young team, but they also need more shooting as well. So you kind of get both of those aspects when you bring in Danny Green. I know he is 35 years old. He's not going to be a starter, obviously, but just being mixed into that rotation, giving him some opportunities, it will help extend the floor out for the Cavs too. I think it was a good move, especially, 1-year deal. It's not really going to demolish your cap or anything like that. Not like the NBA doesn't manipulate the cap all the time, but still, I think it's a great move by the Cavs. It's not one of the Kevin Durant's or anything like that, but it's still a great move that they needed.
Yeah, absolutely. You're filling in sort of that role that you mentioned that we sort of been lacking. And so being able to get that filled and, bring that veteran presence, bring that sort of like deeper rotation guy to help out our starters will prove important down the stretch here.
And the Cavs are just one more game before the All-Star break. They're on the road tomorrow in Philadelphia to take on the Sixers at 7 o'clock p.m. And then it will be time for the All-Star break. 2 Cavaliers will be taking part in festivities. Evan Mobley, one of the rising stars for this All-Star break, and Donovan Mitchell, an All-Star starter. His 4th straight All-Star appearance, his first time as a starter. And we're going to kind of get into just a little bit more of those festivities when we come back. We're going to just step aside again for a brief intermission. But right before we do, again, got to say, Radiothon 2023, we appreciate all the support. I mean, it allows this show to thrive and just kind of grow out of nothing because we just put it in earlier this semester. I think it's been going very well so far, and just every bit helps. Just looking to continue to upgrade our station and provide the high-quality broadcasting and programming that we've been able to over 50-plus years. 216-397-4438. We got Danny outside in the lobby here at the studio taking your calls, or you can go online to WJCU.org. So when we come back, we're going to talk just a little bit about the All-Star festivities, and then to wrap things up, we'll get into some John Carroll basketball because we're getting into close to OAC tournament time here, and some highly competitive games being played down the stretch. Don't want to miss it on your home for John Carroll Sports Talk and Streaks Talking Sports, WJCU 88.7.